Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, mgrahamsews. This video tutorial is for this really beautiful bag called the Iris Messenger bag, and it's by Sew HungryHippie. This bag is a really quick sew. I was really shocked how fast it came together. It's got a lot of great features, and I think you're really going to love making this bag. Before I discuss the features, there was just something I wanted to note. This video is filmed like a sew along, so that means that no parts are sped up or cut out. So you see me sew everything in real time. However, there's times where there's things that we have to do 2 or 3 times maybe. I do only show you it once. I pause the camera, I go complete the second one, and then I come back and we continue on. I just don't feel that you need to sit through watching me do it twice or 3 times or whatever. I just find that that's not needed. If you do need to see it again, you can just rewind the video. So if there's a part that you don't want to watch or it's just taking too long for you, please fast forward through the video or use the option on YouTube to speed up the video so you can watch it a little bit faster. So let's discuss the features of the bag. As you'll see, the bag does have a flap. So when you flip the flap up, you will see that on the inside of the flap there is this zipper pocket. Great for anything you want to have a quicker access to, like sunglasses or keys. The bag does have a recessed zipper on the top, and it does have 2 zippers to be able to open it up. When you open up the bag, you'll see it's got plenty of room inside. It has this pocket here, which is perfect for your cell phone. It then has on the other side a divided slip pocket, so there are 3 pockets in one right there, so great for pens or whatever else. Close the bag. You can tuck your zipper tabs into the bag, just like that, so that the zipper tabs are in the bag. And then you can flip your flap over, and when you look at the back of the bag, we have another zipper pocket here. Perfect for your cell phone so that it's right against your body and you'll feel it if you're out walking. You'll feel it vibrate. You may even feel it ringing as it's vibrating. So you can have that there, or your wallet, whatever you want on the back here. It's just a really great option. The bag does have an adjustable strap, perfect for wearing it on your shoulder, or when you want to go hands-free, you can wear it cross-body. So it's a really great bag. It's got lots of features. I walk you through some extra tips to make this really customized to be your own. You can add all the pockets that you want. You can omit all the pockets and just simply make it a bag that just has just plain, and you just use it and no pockets at all. You can omit the recessed zipper, whatever you want. Really make this bag your own. It's truly a really fun sew. This is the small. There is a large, so it's much bigger if you like big bags like I do. It's a really big bag, so it's perfect for, you know, if you want to have more room. This one did take 1 roll of soft vinyl to make, and I still have some left over that I can make a matching pouch or maybe use it for accents on a wallet or something else. So I did use 1 roll of soft vinyl for this. The large will need more vinyl, obviously. You can make this in soft vinyl, moon glow vinyl, any materials, canvas, whatever on the exterior, the lining, whatever you want. Just ensure that you know that your machine can handle the materials that you're using and obviously the interfacings that you're using as well. So let's get started making our Iris Messenger bags. So before you begin making your bag, the first thing you want to do is read through the entire pattern. This is important because there's oftentimes information regarding different interfacings to use. Say maybe the materials you're using require different interfacings, and sometimes there's pattern pieces that are optional to cut or not cut, and that is the case in this pattern. Now, once you're done reading, you can go ahead and pick all your materials, and then you can start cutting them out using the pattern pieces given in the pattern. So as I mentioned previously, this is the small that I am making. I have gone ahead and cut out all my pattern pieces. I'm using soft vinyl, which I did not interface with any woven interfacing because it's the same thing as your quilting cotton when it is interfaced. And I really love working with soft vinyl. It's excellent if you've never sewn with vinyl. Soft vinyl is definitely the one to start with. It is super beginner friendly and it'll get you hooked on vinyl immediately. And as you can see, I can scrunch it up in my hand completely in a ball, this big piece. It's really domestic friendly. It's great for any machine, but super domestic friendly. So again, if you're just starting out, I definitely recommend trying soft vinyl. And you'll see this has a crackle to it. And I really love it. I've been hoarding this vinyl for a bag, and then I just decided that I would use it for this one. I am using quilting cotton for my lining, and I do have it interfaced. And I also have my other pieces, my exterior pieces that needed some interfacing, interfaced with fleece. Now you can use foam if you want. I've chosen to use fleece to make this a little bit more of a slouchy bag, but you can use foam. If you're using a sew-in foam, you can attach it by base stitching it all around the outer edge of your pattern pieces. Another thing I like to do is use some spray, so some spray adhesive. I've done that with foam. Or I use a glue stick, and I just use the glue stick all around on my pattern piece. I stick it down, then I take my iron and I press it to just sort of heat up the glue and dry it so that the piece adheres to the exterior material. And another option is to use some double-sided tape, which is what I often do when I'm just sort of wanting to get it done really fast and I don't want to sit there with my iron. So I'll just put double-sided tape around the exterior edges and I'll stick my foam on top. Now, just to note, when you are pressing soft vinyl or moon glow vinyl, any of the Sew Hungry Hippie vinyls, you can press it from the wrong side. But what I do with the fleece here, because I find when I press it with my iron sort of lifts up and it kind of peels away the fleece. It's sort of hard to explain, but it peels the fleece away a little bit so it doesn't really stay adhered. I use a Teflon sheet. I put it over top of my pattern piece. So my vinyl is right sides down. I have the wrong side facing up. I've put my fleece on top with the sticky side against the wrong side of my exterior piece. Then I put my Teflon sheet, and I'll show you what my Teflon sheets look like. So I put my Teflon sheet over it, just like this, and then I press it with my iron. Now, because the Teflon sheet is on this side and the glue is sort of on the opposite side, normally we're pressing it from this side. I kind of press a little bit longer because the fleece is a little bit thicker and I find it just needs to be pressed a little bit longer, but not for too much longer, but just a little bit longer to make sure that everything is adhered and fused in place. Once I'm done fusing it, I do leave my pattern piece on my ironing board to cool, just to ensure that I don't get any air pockets or any lifting anywhere in my interfacing. So I thought I'd share those few little tips with you just in case this is new to you. I just really wanted to share that with you. You can use a Teflon sheet or a pressing cloth if you have a specific cloth that you use for pressing. It'll do the same. I used to use just a piece of quilting cotton as my pressing cloth until I got those Teflon sheets. So again, Teflon sheet, press it for a little bit. There's just a couple of tips for that. Now, when you're reading through the pattern, if you're using vinyl like I am, there are some pieces that you can skip some extra interfacing. And the thing I like about that is it's less cutting. It's always great when we can just get right to making our pattern. So you'll have less cutting. So for example, for my strap, you'll notice I don't have any interfacing on it at all. That's because I'm using this soft vinyl, as I mentioned, so I don't need the interfacing. I've gone ahead and I've made marks. There are some measurements and some marks in the pattern that need to be made. I don't give away any measurements. No rulers will be seen, no pattern pieces, no nothing in this pattern, or in this video, sorry. So while you're sewing along, you will need to have your pattern open either beside you printed or on your computer beside you so that you can follow through with measurements, including even seam allowances, everything like that. So you will need to have that pattern open. And that's just for the protection of the designer or just in case anything in the future is changed. It doesn't affect the tutorial. So as I mentioned, I've already gone ahead and made marks. So I've marked the center of my strap. I've also done some markings, and I know it's going to be hard, but I've done some markings on my flaps and on my other pattern pieces where it's needed to be made. Another thing I wanted to note was that with these pattern pieces, some of them are sort of similar in shape, or not similar in shape, but they can get confusing on which way to orient them when we go to place them. So I always mark a T at the top of my pattern pieces so I know where the top is when I go to use the pattern piece when we get to that step in the pattern. I've also put all my hardware in a baggie and I label my zippers because they are all cut for what they are being used for, just so that there's no confusion later when I go to use them. I know exactly which piece to grab. So now that we've got that all done, we've got everything interfaced and cut as per the pattern, we can go ahead and get started. So the very first thing we're going to do is construction of the zipper pocket for the flap. Now, if you're not doing this, you can go ahead and skip this part of the video and you can just go on with the part of the video that you do require for continuing with the flap. So what you're going to do here is you're going to take your flap and you're going to fold it in half so it is pretty sides touching. Fold it in half and create a crease just like that. So finger press it to create a crease. I've also gone ahead and marked the centers so that I see where the centers are permanently marked. So I've marked the centers of that. The next thing you'll want to do is fold your pocket piece so that it is wrong sides together. And then you'll give it a press just like that. And I just use my nail to sort of crease it. So give it a press and then it has the crease. Now you're probably wondering why we folded this one pretty sides touching and this one wrong sides touching. That's so these creases, when we go to place it on top of the flap, line up and they go into each other. So you'll see how nicely they go into each other. If you want, you can still fold them both right sides together. You can have the creases go the same way. I just do it this way. I find it's really easy when they can go right into each other and it makes it easier for lining up. Now in the pattern, there are some measurements that you need to make. One measurement is going to be for the pocket, and there's some markings that you'll need to make, and I'm wondering if you can see that. I'm trying to get it in the light. So I have the marks. I'm hoping you can see it. It's pretty light. I have my markings already made using the measurements given in the pattern, and I made my markings on my flat piece here as given in the pattern. So it's a measurement that you'll need to use, and it's given in the pattern. Once you have that, we will take our pocket piece, and using the measurement that you made on the flap, so that mark, you'll line up the top edge of your pocket piece with that line, and you're going to center it. So those center creases of your pocket will line up with the center creases on the flap. And I always do a little double check. Now, if you're using a material here that you can't put pins in, because sometimes we have materials that we can't put pins in, such as Moonglow vinyl, but there are other vinyls that you can't put pins in. What I recommend is that little box that you drew, the zipper window, put your pins in that. And the reason for that is because you're cutting out that piece anyways. So if the pins are in there, it doesn't matter because that's going to be cut. So just like that. So you can see I've put my pins in where I drew my box. And that way there, I'm not putting it in anywhere where the vinyl is that's going to be seen later. And that's if you're using vinyl for the lining side of your flap. Now that we've done that, what we need to do is stitch around that entire box that we made. So where you drew, you're stitching right on top of that box. So back stitch at start. Go all the way across the top. I'm just going to move this pin because it's going to be in my way. And in the corner, I like to back stitch just for some extra security. It also helps with angled stitches. Another thing you can do to prevent angled stitches is stop with your needle down before you turn the corner. Turn your stitch length all the way to 0, take one stitch, return your stitch length back to the length you're using, turn and continue sewing, and do that at every corner. And that'll just help prevent those angled stitches in the corner. But like I said, I like to back stitch in these corners a little bit. So we'll cut our threads. And there you can see I've stitched all the way around that box. Now what we need to do is we need to cut through the pocket opening here that we just stitched. And to do that, use your seam ripper to get started. Now, if you prefer, you can go ahead and use a marking tool and mark the center of that box and then make little V's in the end if you prefer. I just go for it. I just use my scissors and I just cut. No measurements, no nothing. I just go for it. Just be careful when you're cutting into those corners that you don't cut your stitches. However, if you do cut your stitches, I have a little trick for you because it's happened to me many times before. What you can do, if you say you cut in the corner stitch here, right here, you cut the corner stitches. What you can do is starting at the bottom over here, away from the corner, back stitch on top of your previous stitches, stitch all the way around that corner, back up, and all the way across the top a little bit and backstitch. Make sure when you're backstitching, you're stitching over those previous stitches. And what that'll do is it'll restitch the corner, but it'll also lock in your stitches so those other stitches do not come unstitched. They don't pull out. And then you have your beautiful corner again. Now, I'm going to have to go off camera to press this, but I did want to tell you and explain to you how I press my pockets before I turn them. So what I do is I take my iron, so say my hand is my iron. I'll push this piece so that it's down, and I will iron this nice and flat. So it's pushed and it's now nice and flat. I push that back out of the way, and I take this big long piece and I'll push it up, and I'll iron this nice and flat. Fold this back down out of the way, and then I do the same thing with these sides. I fold them in and I push them nice and flat. Then I'll turn everything, so we're just going to pretend that I've pressed. I turn everything so that they are wrong sides together. I roll this with my fingers to make sure I get a really nice flat press. Then I press it with my iron. Do the same thing with the top and the sides, press it with my iron. But then the last step I do is I spritz this with some water. Now, if your iron, you want to use steam, you can use steam, but I don't use water in my iron for personal reasons. I just have a spray bottle that I use to spritz everything. So I spray it with some water and then I press it with my iron. And I find that that water, it helps really flatten my pocket so I get a really nice, beautiful, crisp pocket for sewing in my zipper. And that's how I do that every time, no matter what. Even if there's foam there, I do the same thing, or any interfacing, I do the same thing. I press it the same way every time. If I'm using something like a vinyl or cork, obviously I can't press it that way because you can't touch an iron to those materials. So I try to press it with my hands as much as I can. I do have a little rolling tool that I use to roll out my seams. I always forget I have it, but I press it as much as I can with my hands, and I use double-sided tape on the opposite side to help hold those seams in place. So sometimes a lot of double-sided tape is used when I'm using materials such as cork or vinyl, but it's worth it to get a really nice crisp pocket. So I'm going to go press this pocket, and then I will come back and we will continue on. So I've pressed that pocket opening really good, as you can see here. So the same way I showed you that I would press it. Now we need to grab our zipper for this pocket. And as I mentioned previously, I have it labeled so I know exactly which zipper I need. I'm going to grab some double-sided tape. I just got to get this tape that I put on it off. So now I'm going to take some double-sided tape and I'm going to place it on each long end of my zipper. And it doesn't really matter which way your zipper opens. However, if you have one side that you prefer, you can always lay it against you how it will be when the bag is constructed. So you know when you go to open your zipper, depending on which hand you use, if you're right or left, you can place the zipper that way. That's what I do to always make sure that my zipper pocket zippers are always facing the correct way. So a little bit of double-sided tape. I'll peel off the paper backing. And I don't know if you saw what I did at first, but I find it helpful when I have double-sided tape. If you just put it down, it's hard to peel it back. So what I do is I fold the tape back onto itself so it sticks to itself, just like that. And then I pull it back and it creates a little tab here where there's no tape at all. And that just makes it easier to pull off the zipper back, the paper backing when you go to pull it off. So lay your zipper so it is facing right sides up with your zipper going the correct way. And you're going to center this in that zipper window hole. So center it, press it down, and you can reposition it if it sort of goes off a little bit. sometimes that happens and you have to reposition it. Usually I try to stand to do this so I get a better bird's eye view of what I'm doing. So I've pressed it down, you can see it's centered, and I centered it actually perfectly because it goes right to the edges of my pocket. So now we're going to stitch this zipper here. So we're going to stitch all around the opening so that we stitch the zipper in place. And if you want, you can use a zipper foot here. I'm just using my regular presser foot. Now I'm coming up to my zipper pull, so with my needle down, I lift up my foot, put it back down, and then I continue stitching. And the reason why you want to make sure that needle is down is because if the needle is up and you lift up your presser foot, you'll move your fabric all over and it won't stay nice and straight anymore. It'll be hard to get it positioned back in place. So again, I'm approaching my pull, needle down, presser foot up, slide the zipper out of the way, and continue on. And if you're worried about angled stitches in these corners, you could do what I had said previously to do, which is take that one stitch in the corner. I've back stitched. Kind of went a little off on my back stitching there, but that's okay. Cut your threads. So it'll look just like that. It's all stitched in place. The zipper is stuck. Now we're going to cut our zipper so that it is out of the seam allowance. So cut it so it's out of the seam allowance. And you can use pinking shears or whatever you prefer to cut these. I have these scissors that I labeled with zippers on it so that when I cut zippers, it doesn't destroy any of my other scissors. And then that's how that looks. Continuing on, we need to create this pocket. So what you're going to do is take this bottom piece here, so this is your zipper pocket again, and you're going to bring it up so it matches the top edge of the pocket. So you're bringing it, this bottom piece of your pocket, up to match that top straight edge of the pocket. You'll clip it in place. So I pin my corners together. And then I go down the sides. And now what we're going to do is sew the sides and the top of the pocket, making sure our flap is out of the way. So you want to fold your flap out of the way as you're sewing around. You don't want to sew through the flap, just the pocket. So start in the one bottom corner. Don't forget to back stitch. Use the seam allowance given in the pattern. And like I said, I like to back stitch at my corners just to ensure that they have strength there. If you have a dangly zipper pull, sort of like I have here, you'll want to make sure that it's down and it's not going to end up under your zipper foot, under your presser foot or your needle. You don't want to break a needle, damage your machine. Back stitch at the end. And there you go. We have our pocket all complete. Now we're going to sew the flap together. And this is the step where you start if you are skipping the pocket on the flap. So what you're going to do is take the lining, place it so it is right sides up, and place the exterior flap so it is right sides down. So they're pretty sides touching. We're going to pin this together. So I pin my corners. find my center marks, pin those together too, and pin it all the way around. And it's hard to see the center mark here because the fleece, I should have redid it. There we go. So when we sew this, we're going to sew just the sides and the bottom. We're not going to sew the top. You also want to ensure that you take your pocket and move it out of the way because you don't want to sew through your pocket. So move it out of the way as you're sewing. So first you'll push the pocket so that it's like this, fold it out of the way. We'll sew the pocket with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And my pocket is out of the way. So you can see here I've got it pushed out of the way. And I'm just sewing around this curve. And again, that pocket, I don't want it in my way, so I'm going to make sure that it stays tucked out of the way. Back stitch. Now we need to trim the seam allowance. You can also notch the seam allowance. I'm going to trim it just so that there's not so much bulk there. Be careful when you're trimming that you don't trim your pocket. Having these notches as well that the pinking shears create, or that you're going to notch in your curves, helps the curves turn out nicer as well. If you want, you can also trim down the pocket. So I'm going to do that. Just an extra little step. Maybe wearing black while I'm working with a lot of white fabrics wasn't a good idea. I'm going to be decorated in threads. Now we need to turn our flap right sides out. Before you turn the flap right sides out, you can go ahead and just check and make sure that you're happy with how the curve looks. If you're not, you can just go right over it, give it a nicer curve. But we'll turn this right sides out. You want to gently push everything out. So I have my expert tool here, this point and press tool. I'm just running it up the seams. I'm going to move my zipper over, my zipper pull out of the way, and I'm going to use some clips now. You can take this if you've used quilting cotton and press it. I'm just going to use these clips because I've got those seams pressed out nicely. And we're going to top stitch the whole thing. So now we're going to top stitch all around the flap, and we're going to baste this top edge closed. Oh, there's a thread here. I always try to make sure I cut all my threads so we don't get peekaboo threads later. go. So change your stitch length to the length you like to use for top stitching. Back stitch. And then just go all the way around your flap. If you're concerned about the curves and you don't want to go just stitching the way I am, and you're concerned you're not going to keep an accurate seam allowance on the curves, what you can do is, with your needle down, lift your presser foot up, pivot your fabric a bit, take one stitch, lift your presser foot up, pivot your fabric again, and take another stitch, and do that all the way around on those curves, and that'll help you get a really nice accurate curve. Another thing you can do is draw the seam allowance on as well, and just stitch directly on top of the lines you drew, and that'll help you keep an accurate seam allowance. I used to do that a lot when I first started sewing, and even after, just because it's nice to have a nice accurate seam allowance. It's nice to have something to follow. Just makes it easier. Make sure my pocket is tucked down, which it is. And that's how our flap looks. It's all pretty when it's all done and all top stitched down. So now what we need to do is put this to the side. We're going to move on with preparing the main zipper. So for this, we need our main zipper. And if you haven't already, put your pulls on to your zipper tape. Now, if you don't want it to be a double pull zipper, you don't have to have a double pull zipper. You can have it just one. It's whatever you choose. This is your bag, so do what you want. We're going to take our zipper tabs, which are these pieces here, and we're going to fold it in half so that it is right sides together, or pretty sides touching. We'll pin it. So I folded it so the short edges met. I'm going to do that with the second one. Short edges meet, pin it. Oh, there it is. And then we will sew the sides of the zipper tabs. So we'll sew just the sides. We're not sewing this top edge, short edge here. We're sewing just these two sides, using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And before you start stitching, make sure you return your stitch length back to the length that you used for stitching. Don't forget to back stitch at start and stop. I'll go in and cut my threads after, when I'm done both these. So trim all your threads. Then we're going to clip the corners. Be careful not to clip the stitches. So by clipping the corners, you'll have a piece that'll look like this. Then we're going to turn this right sides out. And it might be a little more difficult because it is a smaller piece. There we go. going to use my turning tool to help me get it poked out. If you have to trim down the bulk a bit more, go ahead, which I think I will. I'll use my pinking shears for that. Just find it was a bit bulky as I was trying to turn it. I'm going to leave these out. All right, we'll try turning this again. Carefully press out the corners. We'll turn the second one. This one, for some reason, was much easier to turn, of course. She does give a measurement for how far we're going to turn this raw edge under. So this open top raw edge, we need to fold it under. I'm just going to measure with my eyes and then see if I'm accurate, which oddly enough I am. That's really weird. That doesn't happen too often. I'm just going to put a clip there. See if this one, that's hilarious that I was able to do that without marking. Going to put a clip on both sides. I can't press this, but if you're using quilting cotton, you can go ahead and press it. Now what we're going to do is insert your zipper so that it goes halfway into the tab. So fold your tab, find where the halfway point is. So what I do is I folded it in half. I'm going to place a clip so that it'll stop it at that spot. Just trying to get it in here. You want it to go in nice and flat. You don't want it to be twisted or bent or anything. Then I'm going to use my clips to hold it in place. Now you can use double-sided tape here if you would like. Another clip. Insert this in halfway. Make sure it's nice and flat. The nice thing I find about the soft vinyl is I find the zipper tends to stick nicely to it. It's almost like it velcros to it. All right, so then we have it so that it looks like this right now. So you have your two zipper tabs and you have your zipper inserted halfway. Now we're going to stitch all the way around. And I'm going to start at the bottom here. And I'm going to do something that might make you wonder, why am I doing that? But I'm not going to back stitch at the beginning. I'm just going to start stitching. I don't want to get a corner that's angled. So I did that take one stitch trick. Now I'm going to come back to where I started, and this is where I'm going to backstitch. And it's still going to lock in my stitches, but I just didn't want as much backstitching at the end, although not that you can really see it. And that's how the first tab looks when it's all stitched on. So we're going to repeat that whole process for the second side. Now, if you don't want to make zipper tabs, you could always use the metal zipper ends on each side. It'll really fancy up your bag with the metal zipper end. And you just attach them as per the manufacturer's instructions. And it'll just add a little bit more bling to your bag, depending on how fancy you want to go with your bag. And you could even change this up and use your lining fabric for your zipper tabs, just to add a bit of contrast to the exterior of the bag, especially if you're doing a bag like me where you have a solid color on the exterior. So that's what the tabs look like when they're all sewn. I'm trying to find where it's centered. So that's what they look like when they're all sewn to your zipper. Now we need to grab our recessed zipper panels, and that is these two pieces here. And in the pattern, there's a mark you need to fold the edges, so these long edges and short edges in. So I went and I made the marking already so that I don't have to do that while I'm on camera, but I made the marking already. And I wanted to share a little tip with you. So when there's a measurement given for when we need to fold something down, so for example like this, where we need to fold this down by a measurement given, I double that measurement. So I take that measurement and times it by 2, and that's where I mark my line. So then when I fold it down, I fold my piece down to where that line is, and that gives me the original measurement of how far we're supposed to fold our edges in. So as you can see, I made that mark. I'll fold my top long edge, raw edge here in to meet that line, and it just makes it so that it's easier and super fast for me to fold it. I'm not trying to see where the line is and fold it down as I'm folding it on the wrong side, because when you're folding it this way you can't really see the line as well. If you were folding it right sides together, you'd be able to see the line. So again, I take the measurement, I times it by 2, and I make the mark there, and then I fold this down to meet the long edge. So I'm going to use some double-sided tape. You can use glue here if you prefer. Natalie does mention that in the pattern. So again, I'm folding this down to meet that line. So now my long edges are folded. Now I'm going to fold the short edges in. And I'm going to repeat that for the second one. I will pause the camera when I go to do the second one. You don't need to see me sit there and fold the second one again. And that's how it looks when we've pressed it all the way around. So there's no raw edges showing, which is great because you can use quilting cotton for this pattern piece here and you're not going to have any issues with raw edges. So I'm going to pause the camera. I'll press the second one's panels, long edges, raw edges into meet that line, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. All right, so now all those edges are folded in, we can continue on. Now we need to take our recessed zippers and fold them in half. So I'm just going to do this now and give it a press. And we're going to place the zipper in the open long edge of the zipper panel and secure it in place. So I'm going to use some double-sided tape to help hold it in place. I'm going to place it on my zipper panel. And I'm going to line up the raw edge of the zipper with the edge of where I folded. So just where we folded here, this raw edge of the recessed zipper panel. And you want to have this centered. So go ahead and fold your zipper tape in half. You want to line up the center. So I'm going to fold my zipper tape in half. I'm causing a crease and I'm just marking within the seam allowance. I'll also do that with my zipper panels. So I'm going to place this so that those marks line up. Oops, stuck to my hand rather than to the zipper. And I've slid the zipper pulls out of the way just because they create a little lump or bump. So it's just like that right now. And now we need to fold this other edge of the zipper panel so that it covers the zipper. So we're going to fold it over the zipper tape. So again, lining everything up as best you can because now you're not really going to be able to see that edge. But you can kind of feel where the other one is. I can kind of feel it there, so I line it up with my nails. Like I can feel where the other one ends, so I know where to put that, because when I bend this, I can see that they all line up. So just like that. So I'm going to show you one more time. Fold my recessed zipper panel in half, mark the center, and yes, I did use a pencil. I use it within the seam allowance or where it's not going to be seen. Double-sided tape. Grab the other side of the zipper, and again with my center mark, I'm going to line it up with the center mark on my recessed zipper panel. This doesn't want to stick down, it would rather stick to my nails. And it's nice that we have that fold, the raw edge there to line it up with, because that makes it nice and accurate for us. Again, double-sided tape. Flip it around, find where that first corner is, I push it down, I find where the second corner is, I push it down, and then I just feel for where they are and I line them up. And that's how it looks. And you can tell that they're lined up because you can feel when you're placing it down where the other edge is. So you just want to line them up. If it's over slightly, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You can even look from this angle and see that they're lined up. But if it's, you know, the top edge is just over slightly, that's okay. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Now we're going to stitch all the way around. So we're going to stitch the short ends along the top edge here by the zipper and down this other short edge. You don't need to sew where the end is here because that will be attached to the lining later, so that's not needed to top stitch. So we're just going to top stitch those short sides. What am I doing here? The short sides and then up across the long edge. For some reason. There we go. What is going on with my machine? There we go. And then we're going to go across the top edge. Down this short edge. I'll cut my threads now, apparently. Repeat that for the other side. Be careful if you have dangly pulls that you don't accidentally hit them. Trim all your threads. And that's how it looks. You have your zipper attached to your two recessed zipper panels. It's a great method, super quick and easy, and it results in a beautiful zipper panel. And I stitched through both sides. That's what I'm checking right now to make sure I've got the other side stitched, which I did. And that's why it was important to line it up, but that's why I also said if it's a little bit over, that's okay. So if your underneath one is slightly further in towards the zipper than the top one, that's okay, don't panic. So now we're going to place this to the side for now, and we're going to add a zipper pocket to the back exterior of the bag. So you need to grab your zipper pocket piece and your back exterior. So one of your back exterior pieces. Now we're going to repeat all the steps that we did for when we attached our zipper pocket to the front, to the flap, sorry, not the front of the flap, to the lining of the flap. So same thing, you're going to fold your exterior so it is right sides together to create a crease down the center. So there's the crease down the center. I need my pins. I've folded my lining zipper piece so that it is wrong sides together. I've already drawn the box that I need to draw with the measurements given in the pattern. And for this one, there's a measurement that you need to make from the top of the lining down. I've already drawn that line. I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see it. I've already drawn that line. So now I'm going to line up the top raw edge of my zipper pocket with that line, and I'm going to also ensure that the creases that I created are both lined up on the exterior and the zipper panel. And because I've used some vinyl, I'm just going to poke my pins, like I said, through that opening of the zipper pocket. Now the nice thing about soft vinyl is you can use pins in it. It's kind of awesome that you can put pins through it because it'll heal back up and you won't see it. So that's the nice thing about soft vinyl. You can really treat it as if it was a quilting cotton. We're going to stitch around that box. And again, I'm back stitching at my corners just to help strengthen them. And I've used soft vinyl here, so I'm going to press my pocket, oops, just the way I did previously with the other pocket, except I'm going to be very careful not to press my vinyl. You can put a pressing cloth between it or your Teflon sheet between your iron and your bag. Oh. Cutting my hole. Careful not to cut those stitches. The other thing too is with all these pockets that we're making, you can then take these pockets and add more pockets to your bag if you want. If you're like me and you love lots of pockets on your bags, you can just take all these same instructions and add them to any of the pieces. So you can add more to your lining, you can add another one to the exterior on the back or the front, wherever, so it'll be under the flap, the one on the front, wherever you want. That's the bonus of all these pockets, is that one pocket that you've made can be used anywhere on this bag. So I'm going to go take this to my iron. I'm going to press it onto the wrong side, and then when I come back, we will add our zipper and continue on. All right, my pocket is all pressed. Now I'm ready to add my zipper. And same thing as we did before, we're going to add the double-sided tape to the long edges of the zipper. So just along the long edges, and again, you can figure out which way you want your pull to go when you're wearing the bag, or if you're making it for somebody else, just pick a way for it to go. So we know this is the back of the bag. You could also make it the front of the bag if you want to. The choice is yours. Oh no. That didn't stick down. I forgot to press it down. So now I'm going to add the double-sided tape again because it came completely off. For some reason it doesn't want to stick down. And again, if you don't have double-sided tape, you can use some glue for this. You can use a glue stick. You'll need to have it dry before you stitch it though, because you will gum up your needle. A quick tip for that to make it dry is to take it to your iron and press your iron down to dry the glue. If you've used the vinyl like I have, you can put your pressing cloth over it. So I want my zipper to go this way. I am planning to make this one for myself. I always plan to make it for myself and then I change my mind and I give it to somebody else. So center your zipper in the zipper opening. Then we're going to do the same thing we did previously. Stitch it down all the way around the opening. When you get to that zipper, needle down, press your foot up, slide the zipper, pull out of the way. And I kind of pressed my pocket so I would have a little bit of a, I guess almost looks like a binding. Oh, I'm looking for this. I gotta go this way. Almost looks like a binding so that it has a bit of a, I don't know how to explain it. I'll show you when I'm done. So you can see a bit of my lining poking through, and I like how it looks. It gives it a bit of contrast so you can tell that there's a pocket there by the way I pressed it. I also didn't want to touch my vinyl while I was pressing, so I was forced to sort of have it go that way. But I like how it looks. Adds a bit of contrast. So see how you can see my lining poking out? I like it. It adds a bit of detail and contrast, and you can really see where that pocket is. So now we need to do the same thing, cut our zipper so it's not in our seam allowance. And I think that side is going to be good, but I'll trim it a little bit. Just a little bit. It doesn't need to be trimmed that much, just enough to keep it out of your seam allowance. Fold your pocket again, just like we did previously. Clip it all together. And then sew it just like we did for the pocket on the flap. Using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Oops, kind of went a little wonky there, but that's okay. And again, you're just sewing through the pocket. You're not sewing through your exterior, so you want to ensure that you move your exterior out of the way so you don't sew through it. And remember, every time you stop, make sure your needle is down so that you don't pull your fabric out from under your presser foot. And there we have it, our second pocket. Let's see if my phone fits inside. And it does. Our second pocket is all done. So you'll know for sure that if you're sewing the large bag, your pocket would be bigger and it'll definitely fit inside. I'm going to trim this down. No particular reason, I just like it so that it doesn't fray later as the bag is being used. Just be careful not to clip your stitches if you're doing this. Moving right along, we now need to take our flap and place it centered. I'm just checking to make sure I didn't skip any steps. Centered onto the exterior body piece with the zipper pocket. So this is our back piece. So I'm going to put my zipper pulls into the center of each piece, and we're going to pin this so that it is centered. Now you want it so that you're pinning the exteriors right sides together. So your lining of your flap is going to be facing up. You're going to see the zipper of the flap. And that's a pen that can be removed with heat. I will just go off camera quickly and check with my ruler to make sure that this is perfectly centered, because sometimes your center marks go a little wonky. Perfect. So now I'm going to baste this through all the layers. And what I'm going to do first is start with my needle down. I've turned my needle so that it's down in my fabric. And the reason for that is it just helps prevent the fabric from shifting on me. And I'm just basting this in place. You can use a really long stitch length for this. There we go. So that is how that looks. Keep your zippers zipped out of the way, just to be sure that you don't hit them when we're sewing later. So keep them zipped halfway open. Put that to the side. Moving along, we're now going to work on our slip in pockets for the lining. And again, if this is something you don't want in your lining, go ahead and skip it. If you don't want any pockets at all and you just want a simple bag that you can just throw everything in, skip all the pockets and just go right to making the bag. So if you haven't already, you need to interface your pieces. We're going to fold this slip-in pocket so it is right sides together. And where did I mark my T here? Oh, I didn't mark a T because it's a square. So we're going to fold it in half, right sides together. My stomach is growling. I may need to pause the camera and go have something to eat. So pinning it all the way around. Then we're going to sew the sides and the bottom and the other side. However, we need to leave an opening for turning this right sides out. So we'll sew all the way around, but leave that opening for turning it right sides out. And a little trick, so when I get to where I'm going to leave the opening, I'm going to stop with my needle down. I back stitched, I'll pivot, turn my fabric, and I will sew off the edge of the fabric and back stitch there. So it'll look like that. And the reason for this is it makes it so that when you're turning the fabric out, that opening will turn under nicely. You could also baste across that opening where the opening is going to be. And when you baste stitch across it, you're using a longer stitch length. And then you can back stitch though before you baste stitch. Unpick the stitches from where you baste stitched and you'll have the same effect. So now we're going to trim those corners. And I'm just using my pinking shears for this. Trimming it all down. I'm not trimming where that opening is. Turn this right sides out. Poke out your corners gently. And then you see how that opening is forcing itself to go where I had not sewn it because of the way I turned it and I stitched. It's really nice because it helps create a really nice seam so that you're not having it all wonky and having to fight with it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to our iron. We're going to give it a nice press so it's nice and crisp, and then we will come back and top stitch the top edge. So now we need to top stitch our slip pocket, and we'll top stitch the edge that was folded. So top stitch all the way across. Clip your threads. This one thread didn't want to be cut. Now we're going to fold this in half to mark the center crease. And we're going to do the same thing with the lining piece. Fold it in half. And then we need to pin this in place. So take that center crease and pin it in place. And there is a measurement that you need to make from the bottom up on your lining panel, and that's where the bottom edge of your slip pocket will go. So using that measurement, which I've already marked, and lining up your center creases, pin it in place. Just like that. I've just pinned the 4 corners. We're going to sew down the sides and the bottom and sew up the other side, and this will secure that opening you made when you turned your pocket right sides out, or when we sewed the pocket too. So backstitch really well at start and stop. This area is a high stress area, so you really want to make sure it's secured. I also backstitch a little at the bottom here. I just poked myself. So I'm coming back up to the top. I want to ensure that I backstitch really well. You could also add rivets or Chicago screws at the top corners if you prefer, just for some extra security. Just make sure you don't go through your stitching. You don't cut the hole through your stitching because that will break your stitches. So there you go. Now you have that. The next thing you can do is divide your pocket and sew lines up from the bottom. And there is a measurement given in the pattern for how far to divide your pocket. So I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to sew up those lines, backstitching at start and stop. And the other nice thing about this slip and pocket is you can just sew one little pocket here and leave the rest wide open, or you can sew the second part. The choice is yours. You don't even have to sew these lines. If you want a nice big slip-in pocket because you want to put something in there that's longer, then leave the slip-in pocket completely unsewed. You can just sew up the center if you prefer. You can do whatever you want. I'm just going to give this a quick press with my iron just to help flatten it out. But again, you can do this however you want. This is your bag. There is no right or wrong way. You can add another slip-in pocket to the other side of the lining. You can add a slip-in pocket like this to your exterior if you want. You can add it underneath the flap, but that's how it looks when it's all done. So now we have the 3 openings. And I'll show you. I'll slip in some scissors here so it's easier to see the slip-in pockets. They're heavy, but so now we have one big slip-in pocket that's been divided into 3. Put that one to the side. We're going to grab our remaining lining and our final pocket, which is optional. It is your phone pocket. So this here, we will do the same thing. Fold it in half, and I'm not sure if I marked, I think I marked those on the wrong side. That's okay, I can fix that after. So you take your phone pocket, fold it in half, and there's a measurement from the top, or wherever you prefer it to sit, Natalie says, but there's a measurement from the top down that you need to make, or wherever you prefer your phone pocket to sit. So line up the top of your phone pocket. And again, this is just with a piece of vinyl. You can use clear vinyl. I've decided to use the soft vinyl because it's the same as what I used for my exterior. So I decided to add this to the lining because it'll really pop inside the bag. Oh. I'm going to use some pins, pin it in place. And again, I'm using soft vinyl, so I'm using a pin through my soft vinyl because you can. Just be careful not to poke yourself like I just did. And again, this is an optional pocket. You don't have to added at all. You don't have to use it for a cell phone. You can use it for anything that you have. For example, I have an EpiPen, so this would be a great pocket to put my EpiPen in and any of my other medical essentials, I guess you could say. Just all in one place. Super easy, vibrant, bright pocket that you can see when you look down into the bag. Having it as a clear vinyl pocket would also be really helpful for if you're looking in your bag, you can see what's inside the pocket. So if you want to put makeup in there, you'll see what makeup you have in there. So many uses for it. And you'll notice I'm not worrying about cutting the threads on the back. They're on the back. You're never going to see them. And there's the pocket. Let's see how my cell phone looks in it. Ta-da! Just like that. It's nice to have a slip pocket to be able to slip your cell phone in and out of. So that's how it looks. I'm going to just pause the camera quickly. I'm going to remove these marks that I made for the bottom corners. I made a mistake. They should have been down here, not up there. And I will remark them and then I will come back and we will continue on. Another thing I forgot to mention when you're making your cell phone pocket, if you don't want the top edge to be raw, you can fold it down just like we did when we made the zipper tabs. You can fold it down first and then top stitch that down. If you're okay with the raw edge and you just want to have something pretty on top, you can do a bit of top stitching there as well. The choice is yours. Again, this is your bag. Do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And if you prefer to have this pocket and a zipper pocket, go ahead and add both if you want. You'll need to make sure that you move this pocket down because you want to have room for where the zipper pocket is, and you'd want to put this so that it is under the zipper pocket. And that means you may want to turn this cell phone pocket so it's sideways so that your phone goes in this way, which means you may need to cut your zipper or your cell phone pocket a little bit longer to fit the width of your phone. So just a couple of options for you. So now we're going to take back that piece that I just put away. And there is a measurement from the top down that you need to make on your lining for where you're going to place your recess zipper panel. And if your crease isn't prominent, you'll want to repress your lining panel and really get that crease visible. I keep putting my pins away thinking I'm done with them, but I'm not. I'm going to crease my recess zipper panel. So I've already gone ahead and I had made the marks for where this is going to be placed. So what you're going to do is from the top down, you'll measure and make a mark, which I've done already. And then you'll place your recess zipper so that it is lining side facing you, or the wrong side of the zipper tape is facing you. So just take this center and push it down just like that. You can use double-sided tape here too if you want to help hold it in place. Just on the long edge. So I'm pinning it in place. And again, what I'm looking at is the wrong side of my zipper. So what would be considered the exterior is against the lining side of the lining panel. So I'm looking at the wrong side of my zipper right now. And it's pinned down. So that edge that was folded that we didn't top stitch, that's what you're lining up with that line you made right now. So the line on the lining panel that you made going all the way across, the edge that we didn't top stitch on the recess zipper panel is there, and it's exterior down against the lining. We're going to stitch this in place. And again, I'm going to start with my needle down. And I'm really going to backstitch well at start and stop. And I'm removing the pins as I approach them, or I'm slowly sewing over them. So there we go, we have it attached. So see, when we look down into the lining, so say the bag was finished, I would see from the top of the bag, I would see my zipper, the right side of my zipper. Now we need to repeat this for the other side. So again, measure and make your mark on your lining from the top down with the measurement given in the pattern. Crease your lining. Crease your zipper panels. And I'm just taking that center crease. Come on. It's a little bit trickier because you have the weight of the other lining attached to it now. So it's a little bit trickier. And now I'm going to stitch that piece down. Again, I'm going to start with my needle down. Just helps prevent shifting. I'm going to back stitch really well. And then I'll stitch all the way along, removing my pins as I approach them. And if you're worried about keeping an accurate seam allowance, you could do as I had mentioned before, and draw your seam allowance onto your panels so that you can stitch just directly on top of them. And there you go. So say this was the exterior of the bag. When you look down into the bag, you're seeing the right side of your zippers. We have them attached now. Next, we need to take our sides. So you want to tuck your zipper tabs out of the way in the ends of the zipper, so the tails. We're going to pin the lining sides together and the bottom. And you'll notice I've already made my markings for my corners. Natalie does have us do that after we've sewn the sides and the bottom, so you can wait to do that after we've sewn the sides and the bottom. I just did it because I didn't want to have to pause the camera, so I did this during my prep stages. I try to avoid pausing the camera and getting up and down as much as possible. You can mark them ahead of time if you prefer. Make sure those zipper tails are not in the way. We don't want to sew over them. So now we're going to sew the sides and the bottom. So with the lining, I know I went, and this is the exterior first that Natalie is showing, but we're doing the lining because I already have it. With the lining, you need to leave an opening for turning the bag right sides out. So you want to leave an opening along the bottom. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, sew your sides with the measurement given in the pattern. One side done. Just tuck your zipper tab out of the way. Mine was trying to creep over. Now we're going to sew the bottom, and for the bottom you need to ensure that you leave an opening. So to do that, I'm going to sew, and then I'm going to stop, turn, and pivot down. And having my cutouts done already, I know how far I can go away from them. So I start like that, where my seam allowance is, I pivot and go down, then I go back up to where I was and continue sewing all the way to the other end, just until I meet my previous stitches. So it looks like that. If you have another method that works for you, definitely go ahead and use it. Now we want to reinforce, so you're going to end up drawing your squares now. And you want to reinforce where those squares are, where you're going to cut. So see this line here? I'm trying to see if I can see what I'm showing you. This line here, we want to reinforce before the line, and we want to reinforce after this line here. And what we mean by that is back stitching. So start where the square is, where that line is, and just back stitch a few times, just like that. I'll show you in a second. So I'm on top of my previous stitches, and I'm back stitching. So can you see how I've back stitched there? You can see some back stitching both sides. That's what you want to do, and that's going to reinforce those stitches. And the reason why this is important is because when we cut those corners out, you're going to have threads that are going to want to come undone. And we don't want that. We want the stitching to stay in place, especially when you're pulling your corners out to flatten them to box your corners. Now what we need to do is cut those corners out. And we've back stitched, so we're good. And another thing is if you have Natalie's box corner templates, these corners are really easy to do because you can even use your rotary cutter to cut them. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim my seam allowances with my pinking shears. I'm not going to trim the bottom because the bottom is going to be sewn later to close that opening. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to open my zipper now so that when it comes time I can reach in and turn my bag out, because that's what we're going to turn our bag through. And I know that's a small opening. I probably should have left a little longer. If I have to unpick some stitches, I will do that. But there you go. That's how it looks so far with our lining. You can go ahead and press your top seam here open. You can also base stitch it open if you want, or leave it and you can nest your seams later when we go to put the exterior and lining together. So we need to repeat that for the exterior, which is what we should have done first. So I'm going to repeat the same thing I just did for the lining. Pin it all together, and remember, you're not sewing the top of the bag closed, you're just sewing the sides and the bottom. So pin it all together and then sew it all up. And for this one, you don't need to leave an opening in the bottom because it's the exterior. So you can leave the bottom and sew it all the way across. And then you'll back stitch before and after your boxed corner marks, just to help reinforce those stitches so they don't open up on you. And then when we're done sewing this, we'll put our bag all together. And I will leave the camera running just so you can watch me do this one. So onto my exterior. And because I already have my box corners drawn, I'm just going to stitch right when I get to them. I'm going to back stitch. I'm not going to stitch all the way to the bottom. I'll just stop at that boxed corner. That's another reason why I like drawing them now, so I know where I can start and stop. This is where I start getting really excited because I know the bag is almost done. And I love how quickly this one is coming together, yet it has so many awesome features, like all the pockets And I love that you can add more pockets if you really want. So I'm going to cut out those corners. You could even keep these little corners if you want and use them for something else, accents or appliques or whatever. And trim these seams. Just helps get rid of the bulk. Okie dokie. And there we have it. Our lining, our exterior is now together. And again, the box corner measurements are given in the pattern. So you want to follow the pattern for how to measure and for how big they are. So now we need to box all these corners. So we'll grab back our lining. So to box the corners, what you're going to do is reach your hand in or your fingers in and just pull at the corners so that they come out like that. You're going to nest your seams, or you can press the seams open. I'm just going to nest them and then add clips. And you want to reach inside the bag and flatten that area as well. And I like to put a clip just a little further down from the corner just to sort of help it. Keeps it nice and flat. And it'll look just like that. So same thing, reach your fingers in, give it a pull, nest your seams, and by nesting your seams, that means one seam is going to the left, one seam is going to the right, so that the seams line up, but they're not overlapping, creating a lot of bulk. Repeat that for our lining. Nest your seams, one to the left, one to the right. Reach your hands in, your fingers in, just give it a little tug. Nest the seam, one to the left, one to the right. And then we're going to stitch this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So one done. And if you really want, you can go back over this seam just slightly behind it, just for extra strength and extra security. And I'm not concerned about trimming my threads at this point because they are within the bag, so you're not going to see them. So I'm not going through and trimming those. I'm not concerned about them. They're inside, where no one will ever see them. But I will go back and sew a second row of stitching just for extra strength. I'll trim these down. Have it. So before we move on, we need to make our strap. So I'm going to put those to the side. We need to make our strap. For this, we're going to take the long strap, the length, and we're going to fold it in half, and then you'll press it with your iron. If you're using vinyl, you can't do that. So we'll pretend right now that we're using quilting cotton. You'll fold it in half and you'll press it the entire length of the strap. Once you have that pressed, you'll open it up, you'll take the long edges and fold them in to that center crease, and you will press it, both long edges. Now, tip, don't fold it so that those long edges touch directly in the center. You want to leave a slight gap of about 1/16 of an inch. And the reason for this is so that when you fold it again in half, like this, the two long edges do not cause a bit of bulk in the seam. It'll help it lay nice and flat so you won't have these overlapping like this and have all this bulk here. So if you leave that small little gap, they'll just touch and fold in nicely with each other. So I'm using vinyl. I'm going to add some double-sided tape down the entire length of my strap because I can't press it with my iron. You can also use Natalie's leather strap for this. You can use some of Natalie's webbing. There are so many options. You can again use the lining fabric that you used for your lining and use it for your strap instead, just to add a bit of contrast. You can really do whatever you want. And another thing, depending on the size of hardware you're choosing to use. So for example, if you're using 1-inch hardware, what you will do is you will cut your strap 4 times that width by the length of your fabric. So for example, with a 1-inch strap, you need to cut this 4 inches wide by the length of your fabric. And then when it's all folded, it will be finished at 1 inch wide. So again, any hardware you're using, no matter what size, you take the size of the hardware and you times it by 4, and that's the width you need to cut your strap. So now I'm going to fold these edges in. You can also make this so it's just a shoulder strap if you want. You don't have to make it a fully adjustable strap. I really like adjustable straps for the reason that you can still wear it as a shoulder strap, but when say you're out somewhere and you get tired and you want to wear it so you're hands-free, you have the option to wear it hands-free. You just gotta adjust the strap to make it so that it'll go cross-body. So you'll have a slider on it and you just gotta adjust it so it'll be loose and it can be cross-body on you. It's just a nice little option, and especially if you're making this bag as a gift, you don't always know how somebody's going to want to wear the bag. So it's nice to have the adjustable strap so that they can have the choice to wear it either way. Now we're going to fold this in, and I'm leaving just a smidge of a gap so that when I fold this in half again, I don't have an overlap in the center. Now I'm going to again add some double-sided tape down the length of the strap, and this is just going to help me hold it in place while I sew it. This is just totally optional. You don't have to do this. Uh-oh, I hope I have more of this tape. Probably don't. Or I do. Yay. cord for my microphone. All right, back at it. And again, I just do this because it keeps it in place for me instead of using pins or clips. I find it really helps hold it in place. Now, I'm using a vinyl so I can leave my straps raw. However, if you're using a quilting cotton, you're going to want to finish your straps. So before you top stitch this, you're going to want to, or before you even begin folding this, sorry, you're going to want to read ahead in the pattern because you need to cut from your strap a measurement for your D-ring tabs. So there's a measurement for how much of your strap you have to cut off. You'll cut that, and then you'll have your D-ring tab pieces. Then you'll take your strap, and before you start folding it, what you'll do is you'll take the short raw edges and you'll fold them down to conceal the raw edges inside your strap, just like that. So you'll fold the short edge down. You can fold it down by about 1/4 inch. Fold it down and into the strap, just like that. And I'm going to do that on this side, just so you can see how it looks once it's done. And I do have another video where I show how to do this even more. I go into more detail. But it'll look just like that when you fold it in. Now, because I'm using a vinyl, I don't need to do that because I can leave these raw and I will not have any fraying. Uh-oh. I'm hoping that lifts up. It did. But if you're using a quilting cotton, fold those short raw edges first before you start doing anything else into meet or down by about 1/4 inch. So you'll cut your D-ring tab piece first from the length of your strap. Then you'll take your marker or your marking pen and you'll mark the center of your strap all the way down. Then you'll fold the short raw edges in by about 1/4 inch, both short raw edges, and then you'll continue on with the folding as I've showed you. And Natalie does have a link to a tutorial in the pattern for making an adjustable strap, so you can go ahead and watch that. I'll also link in my video some extra little tutorials that I have as well. But as I mentioned, Natalie does have that helpful tutorial linked in the pattern. I'm going to mark and measure and cut for my D-ring tabs. Before I top stitch. I know Natalie in the pattern says to do it after we top stitch, but I'm just going to do it now. Whoops, knocking everything off. So there's my D-ring tab. I will cut this in half. So now I have those cut in half. So now I'm going to top stitch my strap down both long edges. I should have checked my bobbin before I started. Now, to prevent twisting, you can turn and go the other way. So you can break your stitches. So back stitch, break your stitches, and start back up where you started originally. So you'll back stitch up here. and then stitch down the other side, and that'll just prevent your strap from twisting. Oh, what's going on here? I think the original thread got caught. Yes, it did. I'm going to trim those threads. Okay. Trim any threads that you have. Which are now all over my pants. We'll top stitch our D-ring tabs. And for these ones, I'm not going to sew the short edges, just simply because they are going to be hidden within the seams. So you can top stitch the whole strap first, then cut your D-ring tabs from it. But again, the reason why I did that is I just didn't want to have to worry about it unraveling because I am leaving these edges raw. And again, you should do that if you're using quilting cotton. Cut the D-ring tabs first so that you can turn those quilting cotton edges under. Now we need to grab our D-rings. You're going to slide your D-ring onto your D-ring tab and fold the tab in half, add a clip. And I'm actually going to baste this short end. Oh, why does that keep happening? What is going on here? Now we need to grab our exterior and we're going to open it up and we're going to slide our D-ring down into the bag, and you're going to line up the raw edge of your D-ring with the raw edge of the bag, the top raw edge, and you're going to center the D-ring with the side seam. So centering it right on that side seam. So it'll look just like that. So it's centered on the side seam and the raw edges are aligned. And then we'll stitch this in place. And I probably should have used quilting cotton because it's getting kind of thick, but that's okay. The machine's getting through it. Again, center it with the side seam. You can press that seam open as well so that the bulk goes both ways. Center it on your side seam and stitch it down, lining up that top raw edge. And if you have another method for making your tabs, you can use another method. And again, you can use Natalie's leather for this, the leather straps for this. You can use your webbing, whatever you want for your D-rings you can use. Another thing is you can also attach your strap here. So you can make your strap and then you can attach it into your bag directly. So you would take your strap and you would sew it the same way, one end of your strap the exact same way to the exterior, and then this other end will have the hardware attached, but you'll leave this end unattached because we need at least one D-ring to be able to attach this end of the strap to the bag. So you'll still need one D-ring, and you can leave the other end of the strap unsewn to anything. So you'll sew in one D-ring, sew one side of your strap permanently to the bag, and then you will then, once this is attached, you'll then, when the bag is done, be able to slip it all the way through and attach it that way. Or you can use it, again, like I was saying, as a shoulder bag, and you can cut this shorter and you can just attach it in. Or if you just want it to be a long strap and you don't want it to be adjustable, just sew your strap directly in the way we just did our D-ring tabs. Again, this is your bag. Make it however you want. So if you're just leaving this strap just as is and you want it nice and long, you can even measure yourself to see where you would like the bag to sit and make sure your strap is that length. Then you can take your strap and just sew it directly into the bag without any hardware at all. If you want it to be adjustable, you'll need to attach one D-ring, sew one side of the strap in, leave this other side loose and just shove it inside the bag until we're at the end. And then once we're at the end and we get the bag all turned right side out, you'll feed this through your D-ring and then through your slider as well, and it'll attach it to the bag. So there's plenty of options for how to attach your strap. Do whatever you want, use whatever material you want. It's really totally up to you. And I hope that's all making sense. So again, you can do the 2 D-rings and attach it using swivel hooks. You can attach it permanently to the bag and at whatever length you like, and then there's no hardware at all. You can use one D-ring and have one side of the strap permanently attached, and then slide the strap through the slider and through the D-ring, so you're only using a slider and D-ring. Choice is yours. So now that we have that all done, we need to take the bags and we need to put them so that they are together. So we're going to unzip the zipper. So make sure your zipper is undone, and we're going to turn the exterior bag wrong side out and have the lining right side out. Make sure your zipper panels are down. You don't want them pointing up. Make sure your zipper panels are down like that. And you want to place the bag how you want your pockets to be when you are using your bag. So pick which pocket you want to be on the front and which pocket you want to be on the back. Next, you'll put the lining inside the exterior just like that, so they are now right sides together. You're going to line up the side seam of the lining with the side seam of the exterior. Do that on both sides. Ow. Oh, why isn't that closing now? I'm lining up all my center marks now. And if your center marks, you're finding when you get them all lined up and you get to that point in the bag, as you're pinning and it just feels like it's not lining up right, you can readjust. Mine are all lining up fine so far. Sometimes depending on the seam allowance, if we didn't use a very accurate seam allowance, our center marks can get a bit wonky and not line up anymore. Just make sure everything is lined up. My hands are not cooperating anymore. Okie dokie. So now we're ready to sew this in place. I'm just going to grab that clip before it gets broken. We're ready to sew this in place, and you're going to sew around the whole top using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now, ensure you're not going to hit your D-rings. Make sure they're pointing down. I can feel them. They're down. You don't want to hit those. Make sure you're using your stitch length that you use for when you like to sew your bag together. That's super important. And just start stitching. Just pick a place and go for it. Now when you get to where those D-rings are, It's going to be a bit thick. Just take your time. You can use a humper jumper here if you need to. Again, I'm coming up to where the D-ring tab is. Normally I would take just one piece, double the width of my hardware, and I would fold it into the center, and that's it. And then I would fold it over my D-ring, and then I would have half the width of the D-ring, so it wouldn't be as thick as the strap. That's what I would normally do. So now we're going to turn it right sides out. Oh my goodness. Now, if you have your basting stitches in the bottom, you do need to remove those. I don't have basting stitches. As I showed you, I sewed the bottom the way I did with the slip pocket. You just need to be careful when I try to push more than I pull. Oh my goodness. Poke out my corners. I love when I see my seams have lined up. Everything's all lined up. Look how cute this bag is. Isn't this the cutest? Okay. So I'm going to take my turning tool and I'm going to push out this top edge here. I just got to get into the bag. It feels a bit wonky because I'm kind of pointing it towards myself. But I just want to push at this seam a bit. All right, I'm going to use some clips and I'm going to clip all the way around. I'm going to take my time rolling these seams, and by rolling them, I'm just doing exactly that, rolling them. We want to get them nice and crisp, and if you've used all quilting cotton, you can go ahead and take this to your iron and give it an iron, or a press I mean. I guess give it an iron is the same thing. I love the color. Love, love, love the color. And if you'll notice when I cut my lining flap, I made sure to cut it so that that teal was showing. I did that on purpose. And because this is soft vinyl there, I need to just press it with my hand. Now, I don't have a free arm on my machine, so what I'm going to do is turn my whole bag so it is lining sides out. Just make sure your zipper panels are out of the way. Make sure any zipper pulls are also out of the way. Increase your stitch length to the length you like to use for top stitching. And just like I did before, I'm not going to backstitch just yet. I don't want to have a lot of backstitching. I'll backstitch when I get back over it. Now, just be careful of any zippers, anything like that. You want to go very slowly over bulk and zippers so we don't break a needle. You can even hand crank if you want. I just do it one stitch at a time. A humper jumper could really help here if you're having a hard time. Use your rubber nylon mallet to whack the seams if you need to. This bag might not be big enough for me, and now I'm sad. But maybe I'll use it just for when I'm going out on quick little trips and I don't need to bring my whole life with me. Now I'm approaching where I started, and because I'm back there, I'm going to make sure I'm right back in those starting stitches so I can backstitch there. I'm so used to sewing on my other machine that I get confused and reach for things that are not there on this machine. It's just so pretty. The top stitching looks phenomenal. I think this is probably some of my best top stitching. I'm surprised. I have surprised myself. Turn my bag right side out again. And again, we haven't closed that opening, so we need to take care of that opening that we made in the bottom of the bag where we turned it. We need to take care of that. So you'll take your bottom and press that seam allowance under. And if it's helpful, you can use double-sided tape here. You can take it to your iron and press it. I'm just gonna clip it and go for it. I tend to do that a lot. Just hope for the best. You could hand stitch this closed if you really want to have no stitching showing in the bottom of your bag. I figure it's in the bottom of the bag. Once everything is inside the bag, no one ever sees that opening. If you add a zipper pocket, you could leave the opening in the zipper pocket instead, and then it's really hidden because it'll be within your zipper pocket. Just an extra little choice. Tuck that down into the bag. Another option, you could also, as you're making the bag, if you're familiar with how to add magnetic snaps or a twist lock, you could add that to your flap so your flap stays closed as well, just for some extra security with the bag. Again, that's if you're familiar. You'll have to do some measurements for where it goes on the flap. For the twist lock, for the magnetic snap piece, you'll have to do measurements and figure out where it's going to be placed. But for a twist lock, you could install the twist lock piece here first, and then you just fold your flap down and you would install the opening of the twist lock on here. So again, the choice is yours, or if you have a snap and you want to put snaps on it, those are really nice, like a cam snap. You could just put a cam snap and you'll have a little finish button on the front and a finish button there, and you can just go through all the layers. Just a couple of options. Make this your own. It's supposed to be fun. You could really change it up. You could do some embroidery on your flap if you want. You could fussy cut something on your flap, like some fabric. If you have some really beautiful fabric, you could fussy cut it, whatever you want. So now we need to finish our strap. I'm really impressed with this. And again, you can press this so that it will hold its shape. You can add some clips to make it hold the shape too, so that it shapes where it goes. But I kind of like how it just flows, and over time it'll naturally start to fall. So now we need all our hardware. We're almost done. Oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I'm on my wire. Uh-oh. It's stuck in my wheel. That's not good. So the first thing we need to do is slide our slider on, just like that. So there's a bar. Yours may not be movable, but mine can move. I just let the bar drop to the bottom. If not, imagine your bar is in the center. You're sliding this through. So say your bar was here in the center. You're just sliding it through the top and the bar, the middle bar. Oops, that did not work out the way I wanted it to. Then I take the bar that's in the center and I bring this down over the center bar, so now it looks like this. I'll show you. You have the center bar in the middle of that. And I just want to see. So now you can take this and you can stitch this down. And again, Natalie does have a tutorial on her YouTube channel for how to make an adjustable strap. So I'm going to do 2 rows of stitching just to really ensure that it's secure. Just be mindful and careful of your hands. You don't want to stitch your hands. Cut all the threads. Now we need to slide one of our swivel hooks on. So I put this on the table with the slider facing down. I slide my swivel hook on, and then that way there, the way I've done it, this will be between the layers. It won't be facing out. Again, repeat the process that we did at first. Slide it up and over the center bar, back down. Put this on the table so that the slider is face down on the table. Slide my swivel hook on, just like that. Bring the raw edge up and stitch that in place. And you can use rivets here. I'm kind of liking the look of a more simple-y bag, not so fancy. I'm sewing a second row of stitches as close as I can to the hardware. You can even sew a box with an X if you prefer, for some extra strength in that area. When the tutorial's done filming, I'll go back through and make sure I've trimmed all my threads. Now what's left to do is clip your strap, just like that. And this is what I mean, if you tighten it, you have a shoulder strap, but if you loosen it off, so see you have a shoulder bag, if you loosen it off, you can have an adjustable bag. So there it is, your iris bag is complete, sorry, your iris messenger bag. Your iris messenger bag is all complete. You're ready to take it out and show it off to the world. Don't forget to post it on social media and tag Sew HungryHippie using the tags given in the pattern, and also post it in the Sew HungryHippie Makers group on Facebook so we can all see your beautiful bags. Thank you for sewing along with me. I hope you all enjoyed sewing and maybe picked up some tips and tricks along the way. I do hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.